efficiency is one key thing. I mean, the process is a matter of minutes now. Any tool that incorporates AI has the power to create more precise outputs, and they can make predictions because they already have a lot of database as an input. The design process which I was talking about will be much more optimized than it is now. So you have to be really clear on your own thought process first, rather than just jumping into these tools and trying to make sense of what it gives you, because AI is blind and it depends on
Right.
what you're asking it to do. Generative design, procedural design is something which really needs to be taught in architecture schools.
A warm good evening from the Architect's Diary, and I extend a gracious welcome to TADPod. I'm Architect Simran Khare, co-editor at the Architect's Diary. So, TADPod is an initiative by the Architect's Diary where we illuminate the remarkable journeys of leaders with architectural brilliance. Through TADPod, we focus on presenting curated insights from extraordinary individuals, shedding light on their creative process, exemplary philosophies, and exquisite contribution to the built environment. By featuring discussions with visionary architects, designers, and urban planners, TADPod seeks to broaden perspectives and shatter stereotypes. TADPod is more than just an interview series. It's a platform for thought leadership, inspiration, and action, driving forward the discourse on architecture and design in pursuit of a better future for all. Today, we have with us Manas Bhatia, an architect and digital artist from Dehradun. Manas earned a Bachelor of Architecture degree from Manipal University Jaipur and possesses a robust background in graphic design and visual communication. Manas is passionate about exploring the potential of artificial intelligence in architecture and design. He has created several innovative conceptual projects using AI imaging software such as AIX Future Cities and Symbiotic Architecture, which gained global recognition. It's an honor to have you with us today.
Thank you, Simran, for that wonderful introduction. It's a pleasure to be here.
With this, I would really like to know that your journey through architecture, from like embracing the entire field to working alongside Ant Studio and then dedicating yourself to AI, it must have been incredibly rich with experiences. So, could you share some of the key moments which shaped your journey?
So, I think going back to the start, I was really interested in using different softwares and different tools and technologies when I was like doing my undergrad. And back then, the notion was that you have to stick to the conventional design process. If you are making drawings, use AutoCAD, don't use Revit, don't use BIM, because that's uh, like I mean, the idea was that if you're using AutoCAD, you're making more precise drawings, and if you're using Revit, then you are dependent on the technology to create your drawings. So I was really against that thought process, but that was the way, and I had to follow it. And then I found Ant Studio's work and how they were using natural materials, and they were creating these beautiful forms using computational techniques, and that is something that really struck the chord. And I just went to attend their workshop, which happened at SPA in New Delhi, wherein we created a pavilion inspired by pangolin. And that is where, when I talked to Munish, and I was like, I just want to work with you, and I want to learn everything there is to learn from you. And he was a bit hesitant at first, but then I kept pushing and I just landed up at Ant Studio. And from there, my world started changing. So I had the opportunity to work on multiple projects, and I became a project architect for huge scales of project, having worked with on government projects as well as private residential projects, then art installations. But in almost all the projects, common theme was that we were using a lot of new age technology and computational techniques, and they were all uh, again had organic forms and inspired by nature, which was something I really wanted to do. So uh, it was like very harmonious to work there. And during this entire time, I was really focusing on the overall design process which we were following, and I found that in I would say it's not about the firm. I would say in majority of firms, and how currently architects are doing their work, the design process has a lot of redundancies. I would say a lot of steps that can be avoided, and they can be optimized if they were to use better tools and technologies. So that was my key focus, that if I want to pitch to the client, how can I do it as soon as possible, like by avoiding certain steps in the design process. So that's how I got interested in AI, generative AI. And luckily, it was that time when generative AI was launched. Midjourney and other apps was launched, so I started exploring them. And I think from there I sort of started shifting into the AI workflow, and I started exploring more tools and technologies, and then I created these designs, and then they got the recognition that they got. And from there, the life has taken a turn. And I did that for 2 years, and then I decided that I want to gain some more formal education in that field, in the computational field. So that's why I enrolled into Columbia, which is like now it's ongoing. So I'm I'm gaining more exposure now in how these tools actually work, rather than just like scratching the surface of AI tools to create images. I'm also looking at other aspects of AI, getting to meet people who are in this field, and exploring even more softwares and more tools that work on AI. So yeah, that's been the entire journey.
Right. I think that break, that career break that you say, working with Ant Studio must have really helped you, like with the practical experiences that you must have gotten there, and plus the hunger that you had for learning the new things and diving into AI. It must have really shaped who you are today as a person, as an architect.
Absolutely, I give a lot of credit to Munish for yeah.
Right. So, moving ahead, technology is like really evolving rapidly. So, from early tools like Autocad to AI-driven conceptual modeling today, how do you perceive this evolution impacting the creative process and outcomes in architecture?
Um, I would say, as we are seeing, AI is enabling a lot of creativity in designers. So, like, people are rapidly prototyping their ideas, and they're coming up with new forms of architecture, new styles of architecture, which we were not seeing before. And uh, again, the efficiency is one key thing, that now if you want to create renders, like specifically talking about generative AI tools to create renders, I mean, the process is a matter of minutes now. And when I was using Lumion to do the rendering, it would have taken days, depending on the kind of computers, the kind of workstation I was using. So that process is much more efficient and fast now. And then, since AI tools, they work on large data sets, so any tool that incorporates AI has the power to create more precise outputs, and they can make predictions because they already have a lot of database as an input. With generative AI, also within the span of what say 2 years, I mean, the kind of images that were being created back in 2022 and the kind of images AI tools are creating now, there is a huge difference. So it is like very fast, and even the prompting has changed now. So like initially we had to write a lot of words, a lot of sentences, make sure the placement of words were right, so as to get the final output. But now I mean, you just type in just three words, and it gives you a very rich and photorealistic render. Uh, Obviously, I mean, if you want to if you want to control the narrative, then that's still a problem. It will generate random images, but to actually get the images to be exactly what you have in mind is still like something which we have to do. I mean, definitely we have to do something. I mean, we cannot rely on AI to completely do everything on its own. But yeah, I mean, it's really fast, I would say. So in the coming time, if all the softwares are embedded with AI systems, I would say the workflow, that again, the design process which I was talking about, will be much more optimized than it is now.
Right. So exactly adding to this last point that you said, how do you think like with the evolving technology that AI can can AI impact beyond visualization to enhancing the design decisions and also in the execution process? Can AI can we see the future of AI moving towards design execution as well?
Yeah, so there are still apps and platforms which are using generative design and procedural design to create floor plans, let's say. So you just have to mention your parameters, like I want this kind of space, this kind of building typology, and the size of spaces you can also mention. And then you can mention parameters like I want there to be courtyards. And then using all these parameters, the tools, they create the floor plans, and then even create the 3D models for you. So that's generative design. That's like procedural designing, which is limited to the parameters that you set. So the database is limited there. But if you add another layer of AI in these tools, then the difference is that AI also learns, when it operates. So it is not limited to that data set itself. It keeps on improving. So let's say that I want the windows to open and close depending on the weather outside and depending on the sunlight outside. So we can still use sensors, and we can feed in the open data that we have available of that city and of that climate. But then uh, if we use AI into that, it can automatically start learning and making predictions of what will happen. So if we train that AI for 1 year, then it knows that uh, it will work in a much more efficient way than just relying on sensors to do the same thing. So in every aspect, in 3D and floor plans, and then in the way buildings function, adding an AI layer everywhere basically makes the process much more quicker and much more reliable, I would say.
Right. So I think with the evolution in technology, we might also see AI being convenient for users with respect to the integration of it with various softwares, and overall accessibility towards AI might get easier, I think, with the days and as technology evolves.
Yeah, the accessibility will be easier. And also, I mean, if you talk about computational design, when we use Grasshopper environment, and when we use Python scripting to create the designs and to create these tools which basically make these generative plans, we need we need basically the knowledge of coding, and we need to know how to write the scripts. But that's how we are interacting with computers nowadays. Like, we are using the language of the computers to speak to the computers. Okay. But with AI, we are bypassing that. We are using natural language to speak to the computers. So
Mhm.
the designers, then they don't have to be worried about learning how to code. Then they
Right.
can focus more on how to use these tools to design better spaces, rather than going through a rigorous course of learning how to code to do the same stuff. So it's like we are talking human to computer rather than talking
Right.
computer to computer. So
Right.
yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, that was the next question I was coming to. So, how can we develop effective prompts to generate AI driven designs that are both efficient and which can be executed? Because right now, AI looks quite complex because of its the prompt system, because not a general student of architecture can just go and start typing on Midjourney and expect a design which is really going to be efficient. So, how do you think we can develop these effective prompts for better designs?
I think before jumping into these tools, it's really important to have a thought process going on. Ask the right kind of questions. What do you want to achieve when you use these tools? What kind of image, what kind of 3D do you want the AI to generate? So you have to be really clear on your own thought process first, rather than just jumping into these tools and trying to make sense of what it gives you. So it's the matter of the fact is who is in control of the narrative, whether you are in control of the narrative, or are you just depending on AI to give you some outputs, and then you are being swayed away, by the uh, thousands of iterations that it gives you. So I mean, the process will change over time, but currently, I would say it's better to have a piece of paper, go back to the scratch, have a piece of paper, write down the words which really make sense. If I want to create an architectural building which looks like something that a famous architect would create, like let's say I'm inspired by some architect and I want to create something similar, then first decode the image from that architect. uh, what elements do you see in that image? uh, Define how the sky looks, define the materials, define how the style of the building is. So once you have these words, then you have to basically just connect those words and make a prompt. So
Okay.
it is that kind of a process where you look for inspiration, decode the images, and write those on a piece of paper, and then also use ChatGPT to help you with that process.
Right.
Because again, we have another LLM tool at handy and available to use. So use different kind of AI tools in combination, and I think that makes the process much more easier and much more refined.
Right, right, right. You rightly said. I mean, we need to get back to knowing what we want, and once we realize that, then we will be able to give right prompts to the system, and it can generate better designs for us.
Yeah, because AI is blind, and it depends on
Right,
what you're asking it to do.
right,
And if
right, right.
if you are not able to convey your message properly, it will make sense of it anyhow, and it will just randomly create stuff for you.
Right, right, right. Then the images and the designs won't have any scale or proportions to it, and that is where I think the goof up begins.
Yes, yes, yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So, looking at the current architectural landscape, how do you think architects can harness this power of technology to curate sensible, efficient, and environmentally conscious architectural designs?
I would say, so there is a lot of stuff going on. If you've heard of Sidewalks Lab by Google, it was a project which got dissolved in 2021. But what they were doing is they were using generative design to basically create these um, like townships, I would say, based on certain parameters. Again, as I talked about, that parameters could be the height of the towers, and then the courtyards, and the distance, the street grids, how different street grids impact the daylight which is reaching the streets, and how the form of the building impacts the kind of sunlight the building is receiving, in order to investigate how comfortable the outdoor spaces would be in that kind of a design. So using these tools to create different iterations, and then analyzing these iterations to get to the best possible result, that this is the most optimized form of the building. And you if you use this building, then maybe the spaces are much more comfortable thermally.
Yeah.
So we already had these tools, and with AI, it's just adding another layer on top of these
Hmm.
tools, and it is allowing these tools to learn and learn from the data, learn from the iterations, improve the design iterations over time, and then give much more optimized results than just generative design would give us. So
Right.
in I think in that way, wherever AI is integrated, those tools will become much more smarter,
Hmm.
and then we'll be able to make much more smart decisions than what
Right.
we are doing now. Yeah.
Right, right, rightly said. And as you mentioned in your presentation as well, so the fear of losing jobs with the occurrence of AI is like bothering a lot of people. So, what job opportunities do you think can be generated with the evolution of AI?
There will definitely be new roles, especially if when we are moving to a much more virtual environment. We are trying to create human-like experiences in the virtual environment. Hence, there is a lot of talk about the metaverse, which is essentially creating human environment in the virtual world. And uh, like if the metaverse comes into picture like properly, like right now I think it's still a hype, and I know people are working on it, but it's still not out there. But as soon as these things are in the picture, there will be new roles which even I cannot predict right now, but maybe if we ask ChatGPT, then maybe it could predict those
Right,
new roles for us. And we are looking at new forms of architecture, new styles of design. So I think um, there will be enhanced creativity, and if AI takes care of the redundant stuff, the it takes care of the repeated steps, and the design process is optimized, then the designers will have much more time to actually focus on the creative part of the architecture, which we are supposed to do.
right.
Yeah, that's why we started using BIM technologies, right? Because we do not want to create window schedules. That's boring. We want
Right.
to actually design how windows look, not create these schedules. So we can rely on a software to do that. Similarly, there are a lot of steps in the design process which AI can take care of, so that we can free ourselves and really talk about the emotions which the spaces have. If I move from one space to another, what kind of feeling I get, that's the role of a designer, rather than to just create set of drawings and keep iterating on them again and again. uh,
Right.
Also, I think education is one field which will
Hmm.
really benefit, because as we have these new tools, we need people to teach them.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I started taking online workshops for these AI tools, and that was something which was not there before. So I think education field will have more opportunities for people. Yeah.
Yeah, you rightly said. I mean, if the younger ones are taught about this, I think in the initial days of their college itself, they might be able to use later on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So,
definitely.
yeah, so how do you think institutions can incorporate a wider perspective towards architectural education beyond the basics of architecture which are taught nowadays and embrace technology as a whole curriculum, maybe?
Yeah, I think the curriculum of architecture, especially in India, is still following the older methods. I know for sure that in a lot of universities there is a focus on using new age softwares, and which is a very good thing. Uh, and hand drafting is also essential, sketching is also essential, but then new age technologies are much more essential. So I would say the curriculum should start integrating uh, the use of all the modern tools, all the modern softwares that we have available. Generative design, procedural design is something which really needs to be taught in architecture schools. because we want to not just create one option, we want to create the best option available. And to
Right.
create the best option, we have to look at all the other options which we can create. So generative design comes in really handy. Also, if we talk about AI, then I think the basics of machine learning, basics of uh, Python and coding, I think that can also be a course which can be added. Although coding will become obsolete in the future, because again we are with the AI systems, we are dependent on natural language as compared to programming languages. But still, for the time being, at least they can be incorporated into the curriculum. um, and yeah, I mean, just keep on continuously learning new tools and techniques, and have guest lectures, bring in people from various fields, from various design practices, so as to give more exposure to students. So that is
Right.
really crucial, rather than just depending on the old age education systems that we have.
Right.
I
And
mean,
I think,
I I don't want to learn how a batten door works, honestly. It's not being used anywhere. So
exactly.
why do I want to learn the details of how a batten door works?
Right. I mean, there are some parts that we need to let go of with that as we are moving ahead. So, as you said, pattern doors, nobody uses it anymore. So, there's no point letting
And
a
even if
student.
you're using them, the product designers are already making them for you.
Right,
So why do
right.
you need to get into the joinery details of how the doors are working? That's my
Right.
only question.
Rightly said. I mean, nowadays it's like not just architecture, but AI is being used by every other field out there. I mean, it's it has a vast scope, and incorporating such people to teach the students or even the professionals, I think, might help them learn and get better with technology in general.
Yeah, and if you incorporate all these courses into architecture, then uh, it also gives opportunity to certain groups of students who are more interested in different aspects of architecture, and
Yes.
then they may be able to switch their fields after architecture.
Right.
So I think that is also really important, because a lot of students are, they are confused, and they do not want to pursue architecture as is after they graduate. So that's why you see a lot of people switching to UI UX design, interior design, urban design, and there are limited options. So I would say incorporating these systems into the education will give them more fields to venture into.
Right, right. So, as we come to the end of our discussion, what would be your piece of advice for the upcoming architects and designers who have an inclination towards AI and technology?
I would say, um, stay curious, just keep on exploring whatever the world is offering. uh, don't be stuck to your old ways, or whatever is being taught to you by a certain set of people. Those certain set of people may know certain things, but if you go and speak with someone else, they may be able to give you more information which may be practically more useful to you. So stay curious, explore, and find your design style. uh, Sort of, I mean, not really have to be very much focused on that. And also, don't be really rigid in just pursuing architecture and becoming an architect. There are various fields which are related to architecture which you can venture into. So you're not really limited to just designing buildings. You can design products, you can design the lighting systems, you can design facades, you can uh, become a visualizer. So uh, that's why you have to ask yourself what you are really interested in, and then you keep exploring stuff related to your interests. And um, definitely, in architecture we are taught a lot of things. I mean, it's we are bombarded with information I would say, and it is difficult for anyone to remember and retain all that information. So don't be disheartened. It is a difficult course. I know it is a difficult course, but just try to gain information from everything, and then by the end of architecture you will know what you're really interested in, and then you can venture into that.
Right, right. So I think architecture is such a diverse field. We actually, at some point, we feel good that we have a lot of options to choose from. I mean, it's not just one practice that you need to keep doing all your life. You have a
Yeah.
lot of options. Like you said, product designing, there's UI, UX, then we have set designing, which is also like really booming with architects right now. So I think it's just about being patient and knowing what you want, and then you have cracked the deal.
Yes, yes, yeah, definitely. And also network with people.
Yes.
So that's why I was saying having guest lectures, having people from other, practicing
Hmm.
practices come into colleges to deliver guest lectures is really important, because you get a lot of exposure as to what is
Right.
going on in the real world, rather than, just staying in your classrooms and trying to make a sense of what this field is. Go out, talk to people, see what is
Right.
happening, and that will also show you different side of
Hmm.
this field, which you may find your interest in. Yeah.
Right, right. Yes. Thank you so much, Manas, for sparing out time from your from our weird, I think the time differences that we have, and finally we got to schedule this. And it was really informative and interesting to talk to you about the AI, about technology, and how architecture is moving towards the future. So thank you so much for this, and hope to see you soon with our future collaborations as well.
Thank you for the opportunity, and yeah, it's a pleasure.
Yes. Thank you so much.